Well, good afternoon, folks, and we're going to get started with our afternoon session. This is our quasi-judicial portion of our board meeting today of the Board of County Commissioners, June 25th, 2024. I would ask each and every one of you just check your cell phones, make sure that they are silenced or turned off. If you have any other electronic devices, I would ask that you silence those in respect of the presenters as well as our staff and the commission and all those here today. With that said, I will move for proof of publication.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, it's unanimous. Please disclose, each commissioner, please disclose if you have any ex parte communication and the nature in which it was submitted.
Chairman, I do have ex parte communication. It's been submitted electronically.
I do not.
Mr. Lockhart.
I have ex parte, had meetings with the applicant and staff regarding the Reagan Center, and they were submitted electronically, and I'll hand them.
And I've had ex parte with the consultant of the developer of of the Reagan Center, as well as phone conversations, as well as text.
I have had meetings and conversations on item 30, the Reagan Center PD Major Amendment Rezone, item 2024-0671. All mine has been submitted electronically. I will now ask the county attorney to read in the rule of public participation, please.
Of course, Nasa Borkert for the record. While the board welcomes comments from all person with an interest in these proceedings, Florida law requires that the board's decision and quasi-judicial actions be supported by competent substantial evidence presented to the board during the hearings on the applications. Competent substantial evidence is such evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. There must be a factual basis in the record to support opinion testimony from both expert and non-expert witnesses. Persons presenting testimony may rely on factual information that they present, that is presented by county staff, that the applicant presented, or on factual information included in the county staff report to support their testimony. All persons who present written materials to the board for consideration must ensure that a copy of such material is provided to the clerk for inclusion in the board's record of proceedings and official minutes.
Thank you very much. For those who want to speak, make sure that you get in the lobby a speaker form. It's a yellow copy. Give it to the clerk, Ms. Melanie Kuntz, who's raised her hand down here. You're going to want to get those in right away because we're not going to wait to the end of the hearing to start filling out new forms. If you have a written comment you want to make, fill out the green. Give it also to Ms. Kuntz so it can be entered into the record. It's also come to my attention that there may be some demonstrative aids that some of the parties have brought today, and there's only a single copy. I'm advised that if you desire to take a digital photograph of any of that evidence, that will be acceptable to be put into the record. So I would ask that before any of these parties leave, Ms. Kuntz, we ensure that there is photographs taken, forwarded to the clerk, so the record is preserved. We will start our hearing today by staff giving us a presentation to the board. It'll be followed by the applicant if they desire to give a presentation. Once that has occurred, we will move to public comment. Once we move to public comment, we've had all of our public comment. We'll close public comment, and we will allow any rebuttal from the applicant, and then we will move for board action to the Board of County Commission. The first item up is item 30, Reagan Center PD Major Amendment Rezone. Item 2024-0671. This will be presented by Principal Planner Ms. Joy Giles.
Yes, good afternoon. Joy Giles, Principal Planner for Development Services. The applicant is requesting approval of the Reagan Center PD Major Amendment Rezone from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development on approximately 110 acres located on the east side of U.S. Highway 1792, north of County Home Road. The applicant proposes to construct a mixed-use development on 110 acres with entitlements for general, commercial, and retail uses, consistent with C1 and C2 retail commercial permitted uses, including but not limited to general commercial, professional and medical office, and multifamily residential. The PD proposes a maximum floor area ratio of 0.95 and a multifamily residential density of 25 dwelling units per net buildable acre for a maximum of 1,003 dwelling units. In December of 2018, the Board of County Commissioners approved the Parkside Place PD rezone for the subject site. However, applications for development approval were not submitted and the PD entitlements have since expired. The Reagan Center PD proposes a less intense floor area ratio and density than the previously approved Parkside PD, which permitted a maximum FAR of 1.25 with a maximum density of 85 dwelling units per net buildable acre. The comparison between the current request and the previously approved entitlements are shown in the entitlements comparison table in your agenda report. The PD proposes 4 developable tracts and a 35-acre tract designated as passive recreation, open space, and wetland conservation. A dedicated community park, being a minimum of a half acre in size, will be constructed by the developer concurrently with the development of the regional pond on Commercial Tract 1, as shown on the Master Development Plan, or prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first structure built on Tract 1, whichever comes first. Multifamily residential will be developed solely on Tract 2 and shall be developed in 3 phases. The remaining 3 developable tracts in the PD will consist of general, commercial, retail, and office uses and may be developed independently from the multifamily phases. A trip conversion matrix has been included in the development order, allowing for the conversion of uses between tracts, as long as the total project trips are not exceeded. However, as previously stated, the multifamily units are developed solely on Tract 2, and no additional residential units may be added through the trip conversion matrix. The site is located within the Seminole County Utility Service Area and is required to connect to public utilities. Due to the intensity of the project, water and wastewater system capacity improvements are required. Therefore, a separate utility agreement will be required. Is required for the design and construction of each of the improvements. The total costs associated with the water and wastewater system improvements, as shown in the capacity improvements table under condition J of the development order, shall be funded via a proportionate share contribution by the developer of 41% for water and 42% for wastewater. Additional details of the utility agreement requirements are listed under Condition J of the proposed development order and can be expanded upon by staff if the board so desires. The development will access onto Ronald Reagan Boulevard and U.S. Highway 1792. A traffic impact analysis will be required at final engineering review of each phase of development. The TIA will determine any off-site improvements required in the county right-of-way and will also evaluate internal vehicular cross-access needed to facilitate each phase's internal access to adjacent land uses. Tract J will access solely from Ronald Reagan Boulevard and will not have internal vehicular access to the remaining tracts in the PD due to the existing wetlands and floodplain. Access through the existing median openings on Ronald Reagan Boulevard may be adjusted if a traffic study and the county engineer determine significant safety issues or concerns with the existing configuration. Staff has evaluated the proposed development for consistency with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. The proposed development supports the objectives of the PD zoning designation in that it provides the minimum required 25% open space, perimeter buffers, a maximum building height, and defined permitted uses with maximum intensities. The development will provide vehicular and interconnectivity between tracts and uses to promote a well-connected internal vehicular network, as well as pedestrian circulation system, giving access to all portions of the development of each tract and phase as constructed. The developer will be will be required to provide the construction of one bus shelter located on the east side of US Highway 1792, just north of Senator Lane. Staff finds the proposed development to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code, with a mix of uses that are compatible with the high-intensity nature of the US Highway 1792 corridor. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on March 6, 2024, and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request, with the condition that the proposed development order be amended to include a condition that each site plan is required to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission Board, followed by the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. However, this condition has not been included in the development order before you and is up for board consideration. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development and approve the associated development order and master development plan on approximately 110 acres as requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giles. Any inquiries to staff at this juncture? Commissioner Lockhart.
Just a quick clarification, Joy. At some point when you were reading the backup, I think that was for the traffic impact slide, you mentioned tract J.
Let's see.
And I'm assuming.
Forgive me. Track 3 will not have interconnectivity.
Okay.
Due to the wetlands and floodplain on the
All right.
site.
Thank you.
Any other inquiries at this time? Thank you. If the applicant is desiring to make a presentation, we will call the applicant forward. If you'll give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Randy Morris, 7150 South Atlantic Avenue, New Smyrna Beach. Thank you all for hearing us, and thank you all for granting us a delay so that we could continue to work with your staff. And before I go on with the presentation, I do want to compliment the county manager's office, Christian, working with Christian, Jose, and then Ms. Borkert. Borkert? Am I saying that correctly? I'm sorry.
Borkert.
On this item, as we brought this to the conclusion of a long negotiation, particularly on utilities. That was the real delay, which I think you all are aware of. But just first a little history. We lose perspective because so much time has gone by. The original development was approved in 2015, and the application originally started being processed in 2014. And that was Sid Levy, who was a benefactor to the community and also owned Flea World. Flea World, in terms of its original configuration, was almost 38 years in existence. And the county had approved the original PD, which is very similar to this PD. The intervening PD that came about, that we were starting, when we started this process, we were going to amend that PD. Well, it's expired. So you basically have a new PD that looks like now a 2015 PD. And the reduction in size of what we've proposed is depending on which measurement you're looking at or which metric you're looking at, is 4 to 6 times smaller than the last PD you approved, with 4 to 6 times less traffic impact, with 4 to 6 times less school impact. And parallels what was a redevelopment at the time that closed Flea World. That was a partnership with the county, both with your CRA, which has now expired. So a lot of history's gone by in a short 10 years. There was a partnership with the CRA, there was a partnership with the county on some joint planning and joint infrastructure agreement. And then we've now led to a new agreement and a new PD that's covering a lot of ground that you all have talked about but never comprehensively done in any PD in the county. And I want to go over a couple of those very quickly. This PD, I know you all have looked at it, and I want to reemphasize that this PD covers a whole new utility policy by the Board of County Commissioners, written by the staff. This radically changes your 40 years of policy. We worked extensively with your staff on this, as I said, for 7 months. But it also includes the traffic, a version of your traffic impact that you have not seen before in this context, far more defined than any one you've ever done before. These are not my opinions, these are statements of fact. It also has a pedestrian circulation system that is included in the PD and in the order, which will connect each track as they come online on development. The pedestrian walking paths will be constructed around each retention pond that's built with benches appropriately put. We promote the whole walkable community concept that your staff has been pushing for some years, yet you, I don't think, have seen a development yet of size that could have a walkable community. Well, this one will, at 80 acres, developable. And we also are doing that with a vehicular network in terms of the interconnectivity of all parts with a vehicular network. And that also that ties into a uniform wayfinding sign system, which you've never done. That will include citing parking areas, common open spaces that people can do. Also, we'll cite different commercial objectives that should be advertised for either people coming onto the property or those residents living in the multifamily. We're also putting in something, again, comprehensive design standards that go with physical project appearance, theme, including architecture, street signage, open space, landscaping. We also are dedicating a community park at the request of your planning department. That sounds very small on the one hand, a half acre. However, it ties together with the central pond, retention pond, that will be set up in a curvilinear way that will give you a park vista look. This park will include tables, parking, and again, add to the walkable community concept and be open to the public and be maintained by the developer, not turned over to you. And later then maintained by a business association along with the multifamily. All wet retention ponds will have fountains. We also are constructing at the request of staff, a bus shelter for US 1792 for Lynx, which was not done during the widening of 1792. And we'll have a properties association. And then one of the ones that I really like, and again, that you've not seen before, is we're promoting a dark sky lighting. And if you need an explanation of dark sky, either I or your staff can explain it to you. So all of those aspects are important. We had a community meeting that was attended by almost 100 people, about 80 plus, but we had people coming and going, so it's hard to track some of them. At the community meeting, we basically met with very strong citizen support for what we're trying to do, as long as we did it with quality. But there were a couple of issues that were raised, which I'm sure will be raised again today, which we'll address if they're raised to you. But we did put those in our report. I hope you were able to read our report. We commented directly on those matters that were brought up of concerns by the citizens. One of them was, don't build affordable housing. One of them was, could you do something about the vagrants that we think are living there that potentially could be a crime problem, which we have been working with the sheriff on that. Boys and Girls Club has. And one of them dealt with, a number of them dealt with issues that we can't deal with, which is current speed limits on, or current speeding on Ronald Reagan, which you have a traffic problem there, but the traffic moves too fast. And we can only deal with what our traffic studies will show through the county's guidance on what improvements we would put, physical improvements we'd put there. And also there was an issue of street lighting on Ronald Reagan, which is not something that we deal with. Again, that's a matter for you all to deal with. So you'll probably hear about these issues. The last item you heard about, we heard about, was flooding in an area that's been being flooded since every area we could look at, going backwards in time, which we believe will be improved by this development because it will have modern retention systems, unlike the prior development, Flea World did not, which has been closed now for the better part of 10 years. And so today with me in presenting to you, I have David McDaniel from Integra Land. He's the CEO. I have Robert Moon from KPM Franklin. That's the engineer. I have Dustin Brinkman also from KPM Franklin. We have Christopher Godwin. He's subbing in for Mohammed, who you all know from Traffic Mobility, who can answer your traffic questions or those that the citizens may raise. And David Daniel's going to come up right now, and he's going to present to you the multifamily aspect of this project. In the multi-uses, the multifamily obviously is what concerns the citizens, we believe, the most. Even though the other half of the development will be mixed use with retail and offices and all of that. So he's going to tell you a little bit about Integra, and then also present to you a similar project, a video of a similar project to this. So David?
Thank you, Randy, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Happy to be here and glad to be standing in front of you again.
Your name and address for the record, please.
David McDaniel, Integra Land Company, address is 3748 Farm Bell Place in Lake Mary. I've been a resident of Lake Mary for about 32 years now, so this location and project means a lot to me, just because I used to drive up and down many times down 1792 looking at the Flea World site, and sort of wishing at some point we could redevelop it. So and here we are. So I'm very pleased to be able to do that. As Randy said, we're the lead developer on this project, and we are a multifamily developer. It's the company that I started in 2006, so it's about 18 years old now. It's very much a family company. My 4 children work with me, as does my wife and brother, as well as a few other people in our Lake Mary office. We've built 28,000 apartment units throughout my career. Most of that is in Florida, but we do branch out into the southeast United States and a little bit out in the western states. But predominantly, we're in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Melbourne areas, our primary markets. We have built 4 recent projects in Seminole County over the years. Finding land, good property in Seminole County is not the easiest thing to do, because it's a very much landlocked, and we're happy to be able to find good locations because the atmosphere is great for development, great for living, and again, we're happy to be able to work on this project. In addition to the 4 projects that we've done in Seminole County, we've also done, I think, 7 or 8 projects in Volusia County. So, again, very local. A lot of this is very important to us. We want to make sure that we're good stewards of the land, and since we've lived here for 32 years, we also want to be good stewards for the community. So, with that, I wanted to show you a video that we put together on one of our recent Seminole County projects it's actually unincorporated Seminole County over on International Parkway. So. It's called Integra Crossings. reason I wanted to show that is just it's indicative of the quality and the type of product that we look forward to bringing to the Reagan Center site. Most of our projects have similar amenities to that. Architecture is always a little bit different, colors are always a little bit different, but the quality and the amenities that we include, I think, are pretty representative of what we do. So specifically for our project at Reagan Center, our intent is to build 3 phases out there over time. The market will sort of dictate how fast they go. The first project would be something that we'd like to get moving on and started sometime second quarter next year, depending on planning process. That would be about 322 apartments. And our unit mixes, we have 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. It's roughly 43% 1s and 46 or 7% 2s and 10% 3 bedrooms. That's sort of a typical unit mix that we have. Assuming that is successful and we lease it up, we would then roll into the second phase. So it would roughly be 3 years from after we start the first phase, and then the same with the third phase from there. So with that, I will let Dustin and Robbie go through the actual site plan and some of the engineering aspects of Reagan Center. Be happy to answer any further questions as they come up.
Will do. Just if the board has questions, we'll try to wait until all your presenters go, and then we'll call you up if needed.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah, it's a given. Yeah, we're not there yet.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. My name is Dustin Brinkman. I'm with KPM Franklin, 6300 Hazeltine National Drive, Suite 118, Orlando 32822. We are the civil engineer facilitating and helping out IntegraLand on the project. We're the ones that assisted and produced this plan that you're looking at here on the screen. So I just kind of wanted to...
Feel free to move that mic around and make yourself more comfortable. I'm sitting here with you all hunched over.
I was asking him earlier if I
cannot
could
be
extend it.
comfortable.
I guess I'll probably have to hold it, so...
You can pull it right off there if you want, just hold it.
Okay.
If you go into karaoke, I'm going to interrupt you, though.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so what I'm showing here is just essentially the current plan that's on file right now, and I just color-coded it for the sake of discussion as we go through, questions are asked. Hopefully that'll help kind of refer to different areas of the site. So just to summarize, overall PUD is approximately 110 acres. The green area here denotes the existing conservation easement, which will not be proposed to be modified in any form or fashion. It's approximately 35.5 acres. Then kind of going around the circle here, track 1 in blue is dedicated to a commercial blend. That's approximately 28 acres. Going down counterclockwise here is the track number 2, which is dedicated for the multifamily portion, which IntegraLand and David just got done discussing. And track 3 to the far southeast corner is dedicated to commercial, and track number 5 as well is dedicated to commercial. Those, ranging in approximately 5 acres total there. So just to kind of summarize, some of the items, not to try and echo what was previously discussed, but, we're proposing intensities and densities that are much less than what was previously approved. As Randy noted, we're proposing for the multifamily portion approximately 25 dwelling units an acre. In comparison to the previously 45, I believe, that was approved in the Park Place, along with the much less floor area ratio for the commercial of cumulative 0.95 FAR in comparison to a 1.25. And then just kind of touching briefly on, points of access to the site, similar to what we annotate on this plan here. there's proposed access to each of these individual tracks along Ronald Reagan, which summates to 4 total access points. The far southeast would be a dedicated separate access that would be required to that small portion with limited frontage there. Then coming around to the commercial parcel here would likely have a shared access between the multifamily tract and the commercial tract. That would be at the intersection of Hester. And then coming down to the west, which are noted as numbers 3 and 4 here, would be separate access points to those individual phases of the multifamily portion. In terms of, off-site improvements, those would be analyzed at the time of final development plan to really understand what these traffic demands trip in terms of requirements to accommodate, proper access to each one of these properties in phases. So, and then off of 1792 to the main commercial hub here, there'd be a proposed access, which is an existing driveway apron at the existing signal intersection at Senator and 1792, and then a secondary access at the northwest corner, which would ultimately be a right-in, right-out limited access point for secondary means. Then just to kind of touch on, overall stormwater of this site. I mean, we've had, as Randy previously mentioned, we've had the previous public meetings where the community was involved, expressed concerns. It was noted that there was, adjacent flooding issues. I think primarily, just to kind of note, I understand it's within these residential neighborhoods over to the east. Just to kind of reiterate what this existing stormwater system consists of on site to date. I mean, everything was designed to accommodate standards when this Flea World site was originally developed. And there's, I believe, 3 existing stormwater ponds that were constructed to accommodate the Flea World site itself. And then there was another pond that was constructed in a future phase. So currently, these ponds, some of these ponds were designed to meet previous state standards. Now, when we design this site overall, I mean, all of these proposed stormwater systems are going to have to be designed to meet state or local, state, and federal standards. So the enhancements of the stormwater systems are going to be much better in the post-development conditions than what they are to date. And, just in terms of any adjacent flooding, there's really, that's on other properties that are out of our control. So the most that we do with the design of this site itself is we design it to make sure that everything is properly accommodated within our region of the PUD, such that no adjacent properties, are adversely affected by the overall development of this site, just like any other, property that's developed in Florida to date. So I think kind of overall, just kind of a general summary there. I think me and myself, Randy and David, Robbie and Chris from the transportation team be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And we appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Okay, so that would conclude our presentation. And any questions you might directly have, we're not going to do a transportation presentation because there's really no need to. If you have any direct questions about that, or based upon questions that are brought up by the public, we can get back to transportation too, because it always seems to be a big factor in items like this.
We will allow a rebuttal after public comment.
Thank you very much. I was going to request that, and I also, to quote Hunter and Garcia, what a long, strange trip this has been, and we hope you will support this in our journey in building out over the next 10 years. With that, we'll take public comment or any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Any inquiries from the applicant at this time? Not yet. Seeing none, those who are present, make sure if you want to speak on this matter, you fill out a yellow form right away. Give it to Ms. Kuntz, the clerk, so we can get you staged. If you don't want to speak and you just want a written comment, fill out a green form. Make sure you give it to Ms. Kuntz. We're going to open public comment. Let's call the first 3.
I have Tally Sinclair, James McKinney, and it looks like Jean Michaels.
Okay, the 3 that were just called, if you all would line up, and we'll ask you to come to the podium. You'll each be given 3 minutes to speak. I would ask, in respect of the audience and everyone here today, don't try to duplicate what's already been said. If something has already been said by a previous speaker, you'd be happy to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like it. We don't want anybody yelling out or shouting across the room. So, Ms. Koontz, if you'll call their name again, please. Ma'am, come up to the podium. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tally Sinclair, and I live at 603 Driver Avenue in Winter Park, Florida.
Please proceed.
Okay. My husband and I own the north adjoining 16 acres of the property being discussed today. 6 Mile Creek runs through the property being discussed today, an area that was once zoned agriculture. I'm going to reference Seminole County's own stormwater master plan that describes the area being discussed today as follows. Marshes and forested wetlands characterize much of the Lake Jessup Basin, whereas upland areas that exist have been largely converted to residential land uses. Seasonal flooding occurs in the forested wetlands and marsh areas on an annual basis, and Seminole County staff identified several known flooding problem areas within the Lake Jessup draining basin, locations in the vicinity of 6 Mile Creek and its tributaries, the very property that we are discussing today. 6 Mile Creek and the Sanford Avenue Canal, as of May 28, 2024, holds an impaired water status for fecal coliform, a common occurrence from the overflow of domestic sewage. Lake Dot holds either a poor or fair status due to an oversupply of nutrients and degraded water quality, and the same can be said for Lake Minnie. Oddly, water quality samples ended in 2021 and 2022 that both showed poor and fair quality readings on the very same day. It is further baffling that nearly $1 million in amenities was spent on the Lake Dot Park in 2024 without addressing the water quality cited by FDEP, water where children are fishing and playing. Seminole County's 2018 Storm Master Plan also includes 5 areas of the Sunland Estates totaling $9.8 million for pond enlargement and drainage structure improvements, outfall area drainage pipe structure improvements, water quality, stormwater improvements, and the upsizing of storm sewer systems. As of November 2023, the progress of this master plan is still an ongoing study phase, as you well know, with a hope for further discussion with the city of Sanford. You will hear from other neighbors today that can better attest to the flooding issues in this area. I mention your own study to you so that there is no assumption that the accounts that you are hearing from the citizens who live in this neighborhood are in any way anecdotal. Rather, the reports from the neighbors are a mere confirmation of what Seminole County already knows to be a real current and unaddressed problem. An unaddressed problem in an area where approximately 70% of the homes are owner-occupied, not investors. These are homes where people live with their families. Your own stormwater management report contains a gold pie chart of which your evaluation criteria and weighing factors reflects that 50% of the plan is to address flooding and water quality. That's your reported number 1 goal. We feel that this development plan before you only fits into the community enhancement category of that plan, which again by your own studies measure is only 5% of your master plan. Phase 3 of the proposed development would drastically impede the natural flow of the 6 Mile Creek. There is no reasonable argument that can prove or guarantee, I'm so sorry.
Ma'am, you need to wrap it up.
That can be tamed or redirected on 35 acres in such a manner as to not negatively affect the day-to-day quality of living of adjoining properties, the future resale value development of these properties, or prevent a further strain and pollution to the water body it relies directly on.
Thank you.
James McKinney was up next.
Mr. McKinney?
Yeah, that's okay, I'm for the project.
Okay, he's forward, he says.
And then
Next up,
Gene Michaels.
and I would ask you folks, try to keep it to your 3 minutes. I'm going to give you latitude, but try to keep it as concise as possible.
All right.
Name and address, please.
My name is Jean Michaels, and I live at 370 Miller Road. And the young woman who spoke before me covered 6 Mile Creek. Well, 6 Mile Creek impacts our little road tremendously. We're getting a new culvert after 40 years because of it, because all the water upstream comes down and heads to Lake Jessup. So I'm glad to hear that that's addressed. The other thing was we've grown up in that area, and there was a spring called Elder Springs on that property that's in question. I don't know if it's still there or not. And I know 6 Mile Creek goes through the property, and I'm curious, is 6 Mile Creek part of the wetlands that are supposed to be not touched? That was one of my questions, and to preserve the wildlife. And it's good about the dark area that I heard in the presentation. So that was my 3 concerns. And that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Can you call the next?
Chairman, we don't have any more speakers.
No more speakers. In an abundance of caution, is there anyone else here from the public that wishes to speak either in favor or against this project at this time? Seeing none, we will close public comment and go back for any rebuttal comments from the applicant.
If you all would like, we could call up Robbie Moon from KB Franklin, who can go over in greater detail the stormwater issues here. But let me summarize on one thing. The concerns obviously raised by the first speaker are concerns that we have on every development that occurs. And this is a development in the urban area. It's not one in the rural area. And if not here, I don't know where it goes otherwise. This development in this county, this is an urban services area of the county. And it's important to note that the overflow, you all are developing 5 points right now, which is, roughly a parallel project to this project. This project originally was a DRI. Just kind of contemplate that for a minute. DRIs don't exist anymore, but Mr. Constantine, of all people, with all of your experience at the Planning Council, you're well aware of the intensity of that development. You're well aware of the intensity of the last development, and we're telling you now we're declining the development. But what's more important is why I mentioned 5 points is, underneath 1792, your overflow comes to our property. It then goes to the wetlands. Those wetlands, which are so critical and are not being touched, and have a conservation easement so they can't be touched, they don't even allow us to put a boardwalk in there because that's a conservation easement you all put on this some years back. So that conservation easement means they can't be molested. But let's take that sponge of those wetlands and see where that water goes from there. It goes due east to Lake Jessup through a sequence of wetlands and also piping that ultimately goes to the St. John's. That's the path it takes, and it takes your water on overflow storm events. It takes, this now will upgrade the sheet flow because of the totally inadequate system of the current retention that was put in for Flea World all those years ago. So if you all would like, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to pull the board and see if they'd like to have a full explanation. We can Mr. Moon up here can walk through all of this, but I just gave you a quick summary.
I don't know if we need a full explanation, but as a district commissioner, I am going to want a question answered by that individual when the appropriate time arises. So if he would get ready with his map that he had up earlier, I'll have a question, but I'll go to the board and work our way down.
You might want to.
Okay, we'll start at the
You
far.
guys both want to come up? I think this seems to be an issue that we need to address. And with that, when they conclude this, then we will obviously, if you have any additional questions, we'll get up and answer them.
Sure.
But
Mine's a relatively-
We ask you for your support for this project.
This is a relatively, I think, very simple, direct question. As it comes to sheet flow, which was one of my questions, Mr. Morris just brought that up. Can you show us on this existing parcel, what is the inherent sheet flow that's occurring versus what it would be post-development? Is it flowing from 1792 all to the east? Is it flowing multiple directions? Can you be helpful in your analysis and
Sure.
telling us what it looks like?
Yeah, certainly. So, sorry, just pulled it out of your way. So as Randy had mentioned, there are off-site flows that are coming from 1792 that are routed to approximately, what was it, this location? Right around this area where there's an inlet that discharges into the existing property. In terms of sheet flow on the individual site itself, I mean, everything currently flows into, so the portion of the red and yellow flow to a depressional area that's circled right there. And from that was an original stormwater pond that was constructed to accept the drainage of the existing Flea World site. So in addition, there's 2 existing ponds right here that were constructed to also provide water quality treatment for that entire development, which you can kind of see faint in the background. I mean, this existing site is still pretty much, largely impervious,
Right.
surface area that was previous pavement that served the Flea World site. So all of this water essentially gets to these depressional points where they're stored. They have control structures that were designed. Those structures are interconnected between these ponds here. And when certain flows from this drainage basin get to here, they discharge to these systems, and then those systems hold and store water for those respective basins, which discharge ultimately into the wetland. Now, there's previous permits that are associated with all of those models that restrict a development discharge rate, which will be, strictly held to not exceed those rates to where it changes, in any detrimental way in the post-development condition.
Thank you. That was my next question was, you're going to adhere to the existing requirements for discharge in the wetlands?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much. We'll start at that end. Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I have a series of questions, both for the staff, specifically probably our attorney for most of them, as well as Mr. McDaniel, which now we have 2 David McDaniels in the audience. It's one in the media and one in the development.
Do you want to start with the staff first, or what's your flavor?
I'm going to go back and forth. Some of them I need the questions back and forth a
Okay.
little bit.
All
And
right.
it's like I said to Nasa. I first want to say that I have been a supporter of this area being a intense development because it is I think, perfectly situated for this county to be able to develop that area in a manner in which we have commercial, multifamily residential, certainly conservation, and I appreciate the fact that this is coming forward. Since Randy mentioned the Flea World, or the DRI, that was for Flea World, so there was a lot less intensity for Flea World, Randy, when you and I did that back in the 80s, I think it was. But I wish we had a master plan. We do not. We are having, as we have many times in the recent past, the multifamily residential coming in first with the hope that commercial will follow in the very near future. And so saying that, I do understand that we really need a catalyst, if you will. Maybe, hopefully, with the density, would be able to bring in the commercial. But I still have a couple of concerns. Number one, and this is to you, Nasa, when we are talking about the biggest reason that concurrency in transportation failed in Florida is because the first guy in was able to get everything, and then the last guy in had to pay for everything. And I would just want to make sure that from a concurrency level, that we have a solid, rock solid agreement between this developer and the other developments, in the DO coming in, that those costs will be shared proportionately. That's one question right there.
Yes. So the way that the DO is written as far as utility conditions go is that the developer, there's phased improvements, system capacity improvements that are required. The developer's proportionate share, and when I say developer, I don't mean this developer, I mean any developer that develops within the project. The water will be paid at 41%, I believe, and wastewater at 42%. So all the system capacity improvements that are included in the development order For example, the first one is upgrades to the Hampton Park Master Lift Station. 41% of the cost to improve that lift station will come from the developer. The rest will come from the county, and that's obviously because the lift station services just more than this property. But what the effects on the lift station was by our utility engineers determined to be around 41%. That would be the prop share. And how that will be paid is through subsequent utility agreements. So when a developer comes in for any portion of the site, they will be required to pay their prop share. They can use they will be credited for their utility capacity reservation fees if they choose to review capacity, but that will be credited towards the proportionate share, and that will be done through the utility agreements.
So the utility agreement, and I heard that it was revolutionary, and I think Mr. Morse used a few other words, but you have you feel very comfortable with utilities. What about transportation internal to this facility?
Well, as far as internal transportation goes, I believe and you may have to get the specifics on staff from this, but the traffic impact statement, as portions of the development come in, they will be required to provide a traffic impact statement, and that will determine what type of on-site and off-site improvements that are required to be made for the capacity for that development.
Okay. So, Mr. McDaniel, could you step up to the podium, please? And just the last couple of things, Nasa, this is a PD. This
Yes,
is a
sir.
request for a PD. Therefore, as we've discussed multiple times, we have the potential for give and take negotiations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. So the concurrency sounds to me like we have solved or at least addressed that problem. The other concern that I had from the very beginning, and I've told this to Mr. Morris, and we've had numerous conversations about that and the concurrency, was the multifamily paying for itself. And we have all discussed and have been in front of audiences, and I've heard each one of you agree and say that we need multifamily. Part of the reason that multifamily is good is it pays for itself, pays for the services it provides, and that's all wonderful. And Mr. McDaniel, I want to tell you that I have seen Integra Crossing, I've seen other Integra projects, and you do great work. You have great products, and I am excited that you are going to be the developer for this. And since you brought up Integra Crossings, let me ask you, when was that built, sir?
I believe we finished it about 2 years ago, when we were in end of 21, I think, is when we finished it, and leasing it into 22.
And from the records that I found, it was sold to another company in December of 21. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's
That is a
correct.
company out of...
I don't remember the date, but yes, it was sold after we
out of
finished.
Farmington, Massachusetts, was sold. And, you know, that's the concern. If we had Mr. McDaniel and his project stay, you know, I wouldn't have the concern. But what I do have a problem with and concern about is what we've talked about with the Live Local. Integra Crossings, the project we saw today, has 348 units. Doesn't look affordable housing to me at all, but 156 of those units with the new, not you, sir, but the new purchaser has gone and gotten the units approved for the 120 AMI, which means that they are getting a complete 75% discount on their ad valorem taxes for that project. Another project that you sold, Integra 289 Exchange in Volusia, is doing the same thing, literally over nearly half, not from you, but from somebody that you sold. In the real estate business, Mr. McDaniel is a great developer, but part of his job is to sell that project. And the concern I have is the affordability and the sustainability of our taxpayers when it comes to building these projects and being under the Live Local. Now, NASA, at 120 AMI, in Seminole County, is that not approximately $80,000?
I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe someone from planning
Well,
knows
in
the
talking
answer.
with you-
I'm not
in talking-
100% sure.
Okay, in talking with you earlier, and also Kate, that was approximately the number that it is. So that means 156 of the 348 units in Integra Crossing is with people that have approximately income of $80,000. Doesn't sound like affordable housing to me.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, if I may.
Please, I
have a legal question.
Hold up, Commissioner.
Okay.
I have a
Commissioner
legal.
Delory.
I'm going to get to a point,
Well,
Bob.
Commissioner Constantine.
Order, though.
I'm doing a point of order. If there's a
Okay.
legal issue here, in my opinion, because you're talking about state statute, I'd like to have the county attorney weigh in, because with state statute, I want to make sure that we're not crossing over a line, that we could be in danger of a lawsuit.
Inquiry by Commissioner Delory to the county attorney.
Commissioner Delory, which statute are you referring
The
to?
Live Local Act, because I want to make sure that there's a nexus here, that we're not causing issues with us and the state of Florida.
Commissioner, I haven't heard anything discussed or mentioned by Commissioner
Okay, I just wanna
Constantine at
make
this
sure
point that
we're not
causes
doing
me
that.
concern.
Okay, thank you.
So
Continue.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Constantine.
So, Mr. McDaniel, I have all the faith in you, and I really want you to build this project. The concern, again, I have, is that 80,000 market value, the folks, and that is part of the system here, that you're going to develop it, and if you have a good offer, which many times you do, you're going to sell it, and what that company out of Virginia or Massachusetts or wherever they're from, they don't have the same concern about as you do, 32 years living here in Seminole County and building a good project. I just pulled from the property appraiser the amount of money that Integra Crossing, with 156 units of people making approximately 80,000, but being able to apply for Live Local through the company, not the individual, is costing the taxpayers of Seminole County this year, and it's nearly $400,000, with over $157,000 in the school board, $142,000 for the county, $83,000 for fire.
Commissioner Constantine.
I am getting to a point, sir.
Hold on one second. I want to make sure, it sounds like you're talking about the state statute and what it's costing the taxpayers of this
No, I'm
county.
talking about projects that have been approved by the Florida Housing Finance Corp.
Okay, let's try to wrap it up, because we need to be germane to this project, if you could all possibly be.
Is very germane to this project. One of the things that I know that you have said in the past, Mr. McDaniel, through Mr. Morris, is that you do not intend to apply in this project for Live Local. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, sitting here today. I mean, we've looked into it on other projects, but we haven't found that it's something that, one, I understand, and secondly, that works for us today. And
You may understand that after this meeting.
yeah, well, I understand that there are other things that are going back through the state legislature too, because there's a lot of confusion with it. So I'm not really sure exactly what we're going to end up with at the end of the day.
The concern that I'm trying to point out is the viability and sustainability for the taxpayers of Seminole County, which is my responsibility, is all of our responsibilities. And we are working on a Live Local Act right now, because we would have to approve it every 2 years and qualify every 2 years, that we would not be able to, that folks would not be able to apply, but it changes every 2 years. And my only concern is, once this is built, once this is developed, and it goes on the market, I would love to see, and I'm asking you, I understand this is in negotiations, I understand you can say no, but I would very much like to see that you all agree in the development order that you would not sell it to anyone that would apply for the Live Local Act.
If you're asking me that directly, no, I can't agree to that at this point.
And Mr. Chairman, as I've been interrupted twice, but I was trying to get to a point, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Next, Commissioner Lockhart.
blood pressure cuff,
I have cookies. They're really yummy.
Right over there, too.
right? So I had some very specific questions, but I feel like there needs to be some opportunity for some clarification for staff to, let's go ahead and take the time that I was going to take to ask my questions to have staff address some of Commissioner Constantine's questions, because I think there were some assertions there that this project is somehow costing the taxpayers of Seminole County hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can we just get someone to clarify the record on that before we move on? Because that's like, we pulled a pin on a grenade, and I don't know that unless Mr. McDaniel would like to have someone in his team address it, but I think our staff would be best equipped.
I don't know which one on staff,
Well-
what's legal or planning.
I don't want to speak for Commissioner Constantine, but in prior discussions with Commissioner Constantine, his concern is that moving forward, a future owner of this development could apply for the tax exemption under the new amendments to the Live Local Act and receive quite a significant discount on their ad valorem taxes, which potentially in the future could cause the county to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue.
And would
Is that a fair interpretation, Commissioner?
It is, yes.
Okay. And is that illegal?
That is not illegal.
Okay. And is there some reason why do we typically put items in development orders of 3 degrees of separation into the future of what may happen?
I'm not in favor of that, no. But
I'm just asking historically.
Not in my
Both of
experience.
us are rather new, so I don't have a lot of history, unfortunately.
of all the years I sit on P and Z in here, I've never seen it occur.
Okay.
We can ask.
Yeah, no. So, all right, let me just go to my questions. So, one of the things that Mr. Morris mentioned was that there was not a links stub out, and actually I got on Google Maps, and there is in fact a bus-only lane right in front of Bargain Boulevard. There is no covering there, but actually in the development order, I was going to see if my colleagues and if you, Mr. McDaniel, would be open to changing some of the verbiage in the DO in items T and U that reference links specifically. There may be a time in the future when the county is not utilizing links, and could we not just say for transportation?
Agreeable to the district commissioner.
Is that something that you would be amenable to?
To change the verbiage addressing the links?
To
Right now, we're
remove-
required to build the structure, I guess, for it. So if you're asking to remove that from the DO?
I think what she's
The
asking,
the name links.
bus
Oh, the name links?
Yes.
instead of just links.
Because
System.
We're going to need specific language because they have to approve.
Well,
Okay.
Chairman, if I may, I think it can be rectified by deleting the last sentence of T and the last sentence of U.
the reason I'm asking is because over the course of the next several years, when you may be working through this project and getting to this point in time when you are required to coordinate with links, the county may be in a different relationship, and I would hate for you to be stuck with that requirement if that's no longer our situation and when we get to that point in time. So giving you flexibility to coordinate with whoever that transportation authority or
That's fine. I think
Think
as
maybe.
long as it specifically states who we're supposed to coordinate with or generally
okay.
the plan of what you want, then yes, that's fine.
And then the question that I had for staff is it typical for us to withhold, and I understand I'm using typical and both of you are relatively new, so I will ask you, in your experience, in your respective fields, is it typical for us to withhold a certificate of occupancy for a residential building for the development of a bus shelter? Like, so no one can move into their apartment until the bus shelter's built?
Well, typically, you have to have all the required infrastructure in before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. So whatever's required, utilities, roads, transit, all those things are required to be in before your CO is issued. Probably someone from the building department can answer that specifically, but typically, in my experience, that's what's required before you allow people to move in.
Okay.
And it's mostly to make sure that they actually get completed,
Yeah.
rather than, that's the
Understood.
one thing you can hold,
Understood. And then I'll just make an editorial comment about the school capacity letter of determinations, and looking back at the immediately prior DO, we were going to be looking at the need to build almost an entirely new elementary school to meet this capacity. In this SCALD, I believe it's an additional 130 elementary school students that it would be putting it over capacity to the zone schools. So we're going to be looking at the adjacent concurrency service areas for schools. I'm only bringing it up because it is yet another indication of this organization needing to get one of the cities on board so we can move forward with our interlocal agreement for the school district for capacity. This is going to, it's a shame at Winter Springs that we did not have this fixed in time for this very impactful project. Very unfortunate. That, I believe, is going to cost this community more, frankly, than anything else. So the other questions that I had were also related to stormwater, but I think that's, you've addressed that. If we were to try to develop this in a master plan and have all of the tracks come forward at one time, do we even have the utility capacity to do that right now?
I will defer to Mr. Gomez.
Mr. Gomez?
Hello, Jose Gomez, Chief Administrator for Development Review. At this time, right now, there's sufficient capacity for phases 1 and 2 of the multifamily in our water treatment plant. There's some projects that the county is going to have to do, some diversion projects that, in order for that capacity to be available in the future.
Okay. So even if the request was, if we were to demand that the other tracks be put forward into master planning, we wouldn't be able to deliver the capacity for that at this point now anyway?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, that's all I have right now.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniels, please take a seat.
Poor guy.
As you know, from your side of the development, it's definitely a long and winding road. And that song was actually written in the 70s. And I know that Mr. Morris was quoting lyrics as well. County had a CRA. Some of us have been involved in it. Some of us heard about it. But CRA was involved in this county for a number of years. Probably started in the early 90s. And it went up and down 1792. It involved multiple cities except the city of Longwood. And in the 2000s, because the CRA on 1792 was so narrow, we actually asked for a planning session to figure out how we can actually move that CRA forward. They came back to us, or the board at that time, and said that there needed to be 3 catalyst sites. The first site would be over by the Flea World area, or Fern Park. The second site would be this piece, and 5 points. The third site would be further down into the Sanford area of Walmart. At that time, we were all ecstatic about trying to make this happen. Because of that, we were putting CRA dollars in those 3 different catalyst sites to help move the projects along. Then came Mr. Levy, and he wanted to move this property forward. The first development order, which was, I believe, 10 years ago, plus or minus, there was a lot of discussion about multifamily, commercial, all kinds of products, and it was all great. It was a catalyst site. It was definitely everything everybody wanted. And then another development came along, that didn't happen. And there was another group, I believe it was out of Toronto, and they wanted to go a lot bigger. Sometimes bigger is not always better.
20 stories. It's
I
massive.
don't know how many stories it was, but it was high to the point that we needed a new ladder truck and all kinds of stuff with it. Unfortunately, between the beginning of that until now, Mr. Levy passed away. And I was ecstatic that he left the property in trust to the Girls and Boys Club. And now you come along, Mr. McDaniels. And we're going back to the first plan, which I think is a more realistic plan. I think this is a good product. Unfortunately, we waited too long, in my opinion, because it is a long and winding road. And I'm glad to see that you're moving forward with it, and I'm glad to see that the Girls and Boys Club will be the recipients of the revenue of the purchase or the selling of the properties, you purchasing, them selling. I understand that multifamily does make sense to go first. You know, what happens, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Everybody wants rooftops, because I know we also did another plan back on Fern Park, and they talked about the Highlight property. We needed more rooftops to convert, to have more commercial. So there's a whole thing here we've been looking at for a number of years. So, Mr. McDaniels, thank you very much for going forward. I'm glad to see that Mr. Morris has been very involved in this. He's been involved in this property for a long time. He's done some good work, and I'm glad that we're going back to the original vision of this project and not the 20 stories that Commissioner Lockhart talked about, because it was very ambitious, and they're going to put gardens on the roofs, all kinds of things that I don't know why they went there, but that's what the development order at that time allowed them to do. I'm glad it elapsed. I'm looking forward to the moving forward of this catalyst site, because the catalyst site over by Highlight is still where it is, hasn't even moved forward yet. We're still trying to figure out what to do at Oxford Road. And we haven't even talked yet about the Walmart piece down the road even further. So at least someone's moving forward with the plan that even though it's taken 30-plus years. So thank you very much for coming forward. Thank you very much for taking down this property and moving forward with the dream. And thank you very much, Mr. Morris, for bringing us back to reality and the first iteration of the real development plan. Thank you both.
Commissioner Herr.
So the good news for everyone here is that I don't have 20 years' worth of history to share, and I'm going to be really fairly quick. Number one, I'm going to weigh in on the P&Z request to literally change our process, and I have no interest in doing that. I don't think we do that development by development, so I know I got the sense that no one else did either because you didn't bring it up, but I support staff's position with regard to that. I would tell you that the Live Local Act is an issue with the legislature, and I do think there are glitch proposals that are going through. I think that's for us to work in Tallahassee, not for us to work with individual developers as we go along, and I have no interest in restricting trade after you build the development. I think the negative impact to future positive development in this community is far outweighs the potential of a tax reduction based on the fact that we're attaining housing for folks that make $80,000. Affordable housing is determined based on not only the income, but the cost of the unit, and the income being that high, driven by the cost of the unit, still makes it difficult to afford. So there is validity to that need in this community. Additionally, we got a briefing this morning on the homelessness situation, and the fact of the matter is affordable housing is determined by simple economic principles of supply and demand. We have more people moving into the community than we have the housing to support. And so I love the fact that the density has come down. I do also appreciate the fact that this is between two major arteries and that it can support that level of housing. I think attention does have to be given to make sure that the flooding conditions around that property are not harmed. But typically what we see when development comes in is albeit easy to blame them for flooding that existed years before, the requirement is that the water on that property now remain on that property where currently that may not be the case. So I'm not saying it's going to improve it. I don't want to be misquoted, but the potential does exist. I would congratulate you on the walkability of it, the internal infrastructure in terms of connectivity. I think the dream is real. I would love for you to retain it in your portfolio to manage, because managing it local is magic, but I would never dream of putting that restriction on you. God bless America, you get to do what you want to do with that. So that's my position.
Okay. Well, as a district commissioner, I think a lot of things have been said. I could certainly say a lot of other things, but a wise man once said, least said often is the best. I will move for approval, adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from PD Plan Development, approve the associated development order and master plan on approximately 110 acres located on the east side of U.S. Highway 1792, approximately 550 feet north of County Home Road.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Just one thing, just one.
Commissioner Constantine?
Just real quickly, I am glad that Integra is going to be doing this. I'm very happy that we have this catalyst. I'm just very concerned about the viability and the sustainability of this in the model if it goes and is sold. And I did not ask anything. I would not put it in there either. It was a request, and the request was turned down, and so be it.
In clarity, to amend my motion, also inclusion was the discussion about the Lynx bus shelter.
Yes, Chairman, I believe what we can say is that to amend the development order to delete references to links and supplement with the applicable transit authority.
Perfect.
Okay, everybody agree to the motion? Amended motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lockhart?
That was all I was going to touch.
Oh, okay. Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign?
Opposed.
One opposed, 4-1. Thank you all very much for being here today. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll reconvene afterwards.
No, not always, just that.
It's good for the kids to give us a laugh at the end of the day. My son sends me a text saying, this is Ava.
Great, that's awesome. Commissioner Delory.
Thank you.
Well, he'll show up sooner or later. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item number 31, Land Development Code Amendment, item 2024-0800. This will be presented by Maya Athanas. Maya?
Good afternoon.
There you go.
Maya Athanas, Senior Planner, Planning and Development Division. This is a request to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Definitions, Chapter 30, Zoning, Chapter 35, Subdivisions, Chapter 60, Arbor, and Chapter 90, Uniform Building Numbering System of the Seminole County Land Development Code. This amendment will correct typographical errors and omissions and provide clarification in certain sections of the Land Development Code identified after the adoption of the LDC rewrite, which was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on January 9th, 2024, and went into effect in April of 2024. This amendment is primarily needed to address omissions from the newly created permitted use table in Chapter 30. However, those typographical and scrivener's errors in other chapters have been corrected. I will summarize the proposed changes, but a more detailed summary of changes is attached to the agenda. Changes to Chapter 2 include adding one new definition and revising one definition. Changes to Chapter 30 include updating code section references, reinserting and updated code sections, updating the permitted uses table to reinsert the PLI zoning district, and adding a section to establish a defined process for uncombining platted lots. Changes to Chapter 35 include updating position titles And changes to Chapter 60 include updating position titles and designee references, and reinserting and updating the authority to impose fines. And finally, changes to Chapter 90 include minor text edits, updates to position titles, and the removal of alternate subdivision naming. Further, I want to expand on the changes proposed to the special event permitting process. This amendment proposes to remove the permit exemption for churches and schools. It adds that security personnel must be off-duty officers or deputies unless none are available to staff the special event. A provision was added that allows for repeat special events that have gone to the board for approval to go through staff review only, if the special event is the same as the event previously approved by the board. This does not apply if the special event is different or if the conditions imposed by the board were ineffective. The required security plan will be sent to the sheriff's office for review and comment. Language was added to specify that firework launch locations be shown on the conceptual site plan, and references to certain personnel were updated. The attachments within the staff report include the following. 1, a summary of changes spreadsheet, which outlines specific revisions and updates. 2, the ordinance, which includes strike-through and underline in the document indicating the changes. 3, a private property rights analysis, which states the proposed amendment will improve clarity of the code. And 4, the economic impact analysis statement, which states changes will have little to no direct economic impact. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on June 5th, 2024, and voted unanimously to recommend the Board of County Commissioners approve the project. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt upon the first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 2 definitions, Chapter 30 zoning, Chapter 35 subdivisions, Chapter 60 arbor, and Chapter 90 uniform building numbering system of the Seminole County Land Development Code.
Thank you, Ms. Maya. Just point of clarification.
Yes.
On the special event with the law enforcement, off-duty law enforcement officer.
Yes.
Just for clarity, that's off-duty Seminole County or Seminole County related off-duty police officers. Is that correct?
That is a good question. I may have to refer to NASA for this.
Sure. The way that the language is written is to allow for police officers, off-duty police officers, or off-duty sheriff deputies.
Right.
So it doesn't specifically say they have to be from Seminole County. The requirement is that they, are trained as a police officer or sheriff's deputy.
Okay. All right. I may address that here shortly. Okay, any further inquiries from staff? Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Galari.
One of the questions that I had clarified for me just now, so I apologize, and Maya, you may want to pass the hot potato on this one. So regarding the guest house or cottage additional language that's been added, there's clarification. For the purposes of this definition, temporary and intermittent occupancy shall mean a period of less than 30 consecutive days, which does not happen continuously and has periods of time in between stays. I was just curious what the impetus was for this to be included, and clarification from Ms. Hammock just now was that code enforcement was asking for clarification. I feel like this is a, if I have a guest cottage, which doesn't have a kitchen, and I understand the difference between an accessory dwelling unit, which is meant for permanent residency, which would have a kitchen, and it's a different impact fee structure and all that good stuff. But if I have a guest cottage, which is ostensibly which wouldn't have a cottage, and yes, would have a less, lower fee for a impact fee, or maybe not an impact fee at all. If I have a family member that I would like to have stay there because they are maybe home from college for the summer, or someone that's looking for a place to live temporarily. I don't plan on them staying there for forever. They're not going to be a permanent resident. But if they are there for 30 days or more, I either have to move them out for a day and let them come back in, or I'm just not sure why we are trying to limit people's ability to use their private property in the way that they see fit, and is not illegal, other than the fact that we've just created something that makes them now not compliant with our code.
For the record, Rebecca Hammock, Development Services Director. So currently, we have an existing definition in the code for guest house or cottage, which defines it as intermittent or temporary occupancy by a non-paying guest. So we've had a complaint, or the impetus was a particular complaint to code enforcement about use of a guest house or a guest cottage, and the complaint was that somebody was renting it or using it for an extended period of time. And so code enforcement came back to us and said, well, what's the definition of intermittent or temporary occupancy? Because they can't enforce the code for a guest cottage without having a definition like that specifically applied. So they were saying, well, how long is intermittent? How long is temporary? And so we used vacation rentals and long-term rentals as a guide. So long-term rental is anything over 30 days. And so vacation rentals or temporary, short-term vacation rentals are 30 days or less.
But I'm not paying, this person isn't paying rent.
No, but I'm just saying we were using that as an example. What is considered a long-term rental is anything after 30 days. So we were using 30 days as the guide for anything short-term or intermittent.
I just think we're creating you've had one complaint.
There could be more, but that's
to your
I'm only aware
knowledge,
of one, yes.
you're aware of one complaint in a county of 470,000 people that one neighbor is feeling snippy that another neighbor has someone living in their guest cottage, not on their property. They didn't prop a tent in their backyard. They're living in the neighbor's guest cottage. And now we're going to infringe upon people's ability to use their private property and let someone stay there for more than 29 days?
So
I'm sorry that I'm taking this out on you right now, but with the blood pressure cuff from earlier, I haven't had time I just don't understand why we are trying to be in the business of limiting people's ability to use their own private property.
And so and like you said at the beginning, there is a difference between an accessory dwelling unit and a guest cottage. Guest cottages are permitted by right in the agricultural zoning districts, and they're permitted by special exception in the residential single-family zoning districts. An accessory dwelling unit is a permanent dwelling unit, and it requires impact fees. Granted, discounted impact fees, but if they do allow permanent residency, they should be paying for their impacts to the county's infrastructure. A guest cottage, as defined currently, is for intermittent and temporary use. So what we're trying to do is just clarify that definition of intermittent or temporary. If you don't feel 30 days is appropriate, then we could certainly revise that to what the board thinks is a more appropriate time frame.
Commissioner, what do you recommend?
Just get rid of it. Tell
recommend it.
whatever the problem is with this person, with this particular code enforcement officer, can we take that up when we deal with the code enforcement issue? Sure. That's my personal preference at this point, because I feel like we are trying to create a solution for a problem that may not really exist.
Well, and where the issue comes in is somebody makes a complaint to code enforcement, then code enforcement says, well, I can't do anything about your complaint because I can't enforce this because it's not clear.
Right. This is more about a definition.
And then we can't be responsive to the person, to the complainant.
Well, I mean, honestly, I would be the person who would say, why are we saying that a guest house or cottage can only be for intermittent or temporary occupancy? I mean, I understand it being a non-paying guest. It's your guest house. It's for a guest. But
because then it becomes an ADU.
Well, there's no kitchen in it. You're not paying rent.
Yeah,
it is still different.
You get a microwave.
Well, I'm here to tell you, people are retrofitting these things and putting kitchens in them after the building department is left anyway.
Unfortunately, they are, yes.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I just, in my neighborhood, in my district, we have a lot of older homes, a lot of older established neighborhoods where garages have been converted, or They were boat houses that were converted to guest cottages. And people have people coming and going. It's a great way that when family comes to stay during the winter, they stay there. And I mean, now these people are going to be able to be, because we put a definition on it of less than 30 days, now code enforcement is going to have a way to get them if they are unfortunate enough to have a neighbor who's a ninny.
And like I said before, if we don't think 30, because I certainly understand your point. Like you were saying for the summer, like if a child comes home from college, I understand that. So if 30 days, if we don't think 30 days is appropriate, then we could certainly add 90 days. It just gives an enforcement mechanism for code enforcement if there is an issue, or if the board doesn't want to clarify that, then we can take it out.
No, I feel like I'm turning into a libertarian.
Commissioner Herr, I thought I saw Commissioner Delarie's
You did,
arm
but she
up.
has a question related to this.
I do.
That's why
I
think
do.
we should
I
go to
do. Let me
Commissioner
just
Herr.
try to wrap this
Commissioner
up.
Herr.
I think the suggestion isn't an either or here today. I think the suggestion is to take it out today and retake it up when we're looking at code enforcement to see if there's someplace else that it can go, if it's an interpretation. So my perspective is, I agree that if you don't have a kitchen in there, unless you've retrofitted it, and you shouldn't, and you didn't pay the appropriate fees to get that done, then there's probably some reasoning here. But 30 days, in my opinion, is way too short, because we're going to be managing this. This is going to cost us staff time, because they're still not going to want to enforce it. Let's just call that like it is, too. And so I think we need to take it off separately, take it out for today, and then to just address it in the next round with code enforcement.
Absolutely. That's my suggestion as well.
So I'm okay with that if that's ultimately what we decide, but I'm going to go to public comment before we get too far down. Commissioner Delarie.
Yes. In looking at page 3 of 6 on the special events, we're actually deleting the exemption for schools and churches. We're going in the same category as you did with we just did. I mean, do you really want to do special events for every school and churches?
Chairman, I'm happy, Chairman, I can address that if.
Please.
Nasa Borker, Deputy County Attorney. So we weren't overseeing special events for schools anyway, because
that.
public schools have their own special event process.
They're asking us to remove that.
We're not overseeing
Yes,
that.
as it pertains, really just as it pertains to private schools, because public schools has their own special event permitting process.
Even with private schools, I still wouldn't.
Right, so that's what staff, the revision staff has made, and that's based on a request from the fire department that we had that requires that in the fire code, that's required to get permits from the fire department for special events, outdoor carnivals, things such as that.
Same thing with churches now, too.
Yes. And the fire department's here if you have questions on that specific section of the fire
I don't need to ask the fire department
code.
a question. I just don't think that we should be, the exemption should stay. I think that's my position on it.
Okay, so my position on this is I would concur with this cottage definition, going with further conversation with the code enforcement conversation. I will not support this under the current language of just open law enforcement officer be hired. I think it needs to be a law enforcement officer that is sworn within this county. Under this interpretation, arguably, somebody putting on an event could bring a police officer from Hawaii or wherever who doesn't know our code, doesn't know, their way around the county. And I understand that's the extreme, but that is the interpretation I would take if I was going to have to interpret this code. I don't necessarily disagree with Commissioner Lockhart, and I don't sense that what is trying to be done here is we're taking away property rights. And of course, that's a scale of balance. I mean, I could argue that, should we be able to put a firing range on any property that we own in this county, regardless of who lives next door, what happens next door, daycare, childcare, whatever is adjacent to it. There's a lot of things I think a lot of people in this county would like to do with their property because they have property rights. And that's the reason why we have to balance those scales of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And I think clarification-wise, if this is truly just a definition, which is how I interpreted it, we need to make sure that's flushed out during the code enforcement portion of that. Otherwise, I'm okay with it, notwithstanding those two issues, but I'm pretty adamant about the law enforcement issue being a sworn officer of either Seminole County Sheriff's Department or one of the cities within the county who, for obvious reasons, best benefit. To Commissioner Delari's point, concerns about the churches and schools. I think at the end of the day, we've been very fortunate with some of the things that have happened. I don't want to put too much of a burden on those charities and so forth, but the reality is we do owe it to the public from a safety perspective that our fire marshal, our fire department, as well as our sheriff's department clearly understands what's going on at this event for any number of reasons. We've unfortunately arrived at a place in our society where you just can't assume the way things always happened or the way they're going to happen tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. It just takes one move of the needle one way or the other, and now we're in national news with some unfortunate event, whether that be a fire, whether it be some criminal activity that we never imagined would happen anywhere, nonetheless in Seminole County. So I think I understand the concern there, and I would just say that
We haven't had the problem yet, and I understand your point.
we've just got to find that even keel of weighing that. And of course, our fire department, our fire marshal is sort of in a bad place because something goes wrong. Where was the fire marshal? And that's going to be the first question that's asked. If something criminal happens, like has recently happened, which like, where was the sheriff? I mean, who did the sheriff even know this was going on? So I think all this is good from that aspect. Commissioner Herr, I think you had your hand.
I just want to give you food for thought with regard to the jurisdiction restriction for law enforcement. I can't speak to Hawaii, but I can speak to Volusia County. I can speak to Lake County. So I believe the way it reads right now is that if sworn law enforcement is not available, they can go to private security. So when you narrow that down to Seminole County only, if they cannot get staffing for the event, they're going to go to private security who are completely untrained. So I would rather have sworn in, if you want to put a surrounding county, there's multiple surrounding counties that we can get there, to just not restrict it.
So to that point, I think probably both of those can be handled because the sheriff is going to have to approve the security detail. Is that not correct?
The sheriff's office reviews and comments on the security plan,
Correct.
yes.
So that may nix that, but I would say that reviews and comments is going to be pretty strong if it comes back to us and the comments from the sheriff's office is like, hey, we've got a problem with A, B, and C, and we're not so sure these are the right people to be doing this, or whatever the case might be.
We could add language that says, should be staffed by off-duty police officers or sheriff's deputies from agencies located within Seminole County or surrounding counties.
Or as approved by the sheriff himself, or sheriff's office here in Seminole County.
Yeah, I will have to run that by the sheriff to see. We ran all the language by them previously, so I would have to run that language by them.
Right.
To see if they'll actually give us approval. They will review and comment.
Sure, of course.
And we will definitely take their comments and do whatever they're asking.
Right.
So
it sounds like to me, and I just want to run this by my fellow board members, sounds like it's not necessarily ripe for the moving forward, or you want to move forward with the asking to come back and amend what we've discussed, notwithstanding what we're telling them to move off to code enforcement? What is the flavor of the board?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think the vast majority of it is good. I think that there's some questions that have been brought up. They can review those questions and bring them back to us. I don't think we need to slow this down at all. I think we can do that.
Chairman, there's two public hearings required for this. So if you approve this, we can go back and make the changes as directed. If you can give us direction on the changes that you want made, which I heard 2, 3, One is to remove the last sentence of the definition for guest cottage. Two is to add in police officers and sheriff's deputies from within the jurisdiction of Seminole County or adjacent counties. Maybe we say
Or
adjacent.
approved by the
Sheriff.
Or,
our
yeah,
sheriff.
yeah, as approved by the sheriff. I can run that by him.
And they may have language that they would like to weigh in on regarding that, which I'm fine.
Right.
Because it should be collaboration between, our staff, the sheriff's office, the fire marshal, and our firefighters to make sure everybody's moving in the right direction.
The
So-
current language was that. I
Right.
just want to clarify that
Yes,
the
that's
current
correct.
language
absolutely.
was.
The
is
current
that.
language was reviewed by them. Mhm.
So, all right, well, we'll leave it at that. Is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, there is. Cindy Holler.
Ms. Holler, if you would come forward immediately for your input on item number 31, the Land Development Code amendments. Anyone else after Ms. Holler?
Not on this item, no.
Okay.
Thanks. Cindy Holler, 1731 Beacon Drive, Sanford. You didn't bring it up, so I didn't really have to weigh in on anything that was discussed so far.
Okay, you can go back.
However, I just wanted to state the arbor protections, the best arbor protections that we can have. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Great.
So anyway,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other public comment on this item?
No. No, sir.
Seeing none, we will close public comment and move to board action.
Move approval of first reading of the Land Development Code ordinance changes with the discussion that those issues brought forward would be evaluated and brought back.
And flushed out before the next second reading. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure that does it, but
Sure it does.
Yes, I understand. that
you understand?
Yep,
We're clear?
we are clear.
Great.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
One opposed. Passes 4-1. So the direction is, I guess y'all have some work to do before bringing back for the second reading and yes, we have plenty of time. Okay. Next item up, Commissioner Constantine, just so everybody knows, he's not going to be rude, but he's going to have to, he's on a time constraint, leaving here at 3:30. Let's move real quickly to the county attorney's report. Ms.
I do have a
Latour?
report today, Chairman. The board asked me to review and provide feedback regarding an ordinance that's been presented to the board on a number of occasions, referred to as the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County Ordinance. If adopted, that ordinance would declare invalid any legislative action violating an individual's rights under the first 10 amendments, or the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution. And it would also prohibit county employees, agents, officers, and representatives from participating in the enforcement of any such illegal or invalid legislation. After review of the ordinance and relevant legal authority, it's my recommendation that the board do not proceed with adopting such an ordinance. On its face, the proposed ordinance violates more than one provision of the Florida Constitution, and if adopted, would disrupt the separation of powers on which our government is based. Additionally, the ordinance creates a private right of action for county officials and employees to be sued in their official capacities and for the award of damages and attorney's fees for violating the ordinance, and I'm not in a position to recommend that you adopt anything of that sort. Further, there are legal procedures in place, both at the federal and state levels, to challenge the validity and constitutionality of laws. The county should utilize those existing procedures to declare a law invalid, as opposed to making a broad declaration of a law's invalidity and unenforceability in our jurisdiction alone. Finally, I question the practical effect of the ordinance. I don't see how, logistically speaking, a local ordinance can protect citizens from unconstitutional federal laws simply by stating that such laws are invalid in our jurisdiction. Even if it could, it's my opinion the county lacks the authority to refuse to enforce a law it believes to be unconstitutional without that law being declared invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction or repealed by Congress. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to discuss it with you further individually at any point.
Any inquiries to the county attorney? Seeing none, we will move to county manager. Any reports or any thing from any of your directors?
No presentations for directors. I'll spare you that. Because and the reason I say that, not that offend any of our directors that are here, is that I just want to thank the board for our budget work sessions that we had last week. I know that it was long and it was intense at sometimes and just a lot of information, but you did provide us a lot of great feedback as we move forward with this. So what I'm planning to do is all the follow-up items you will get for all the questions that you asked. We're going to give you one communication back with each of the questions, and we'll get that to all the board and the responses back for that. Any other items, like we had discussions on the links issue, as well as the building fund, as you know, I'm going to bring that back prior to the budget public hearing at a regular county commission meeting, so you won't have to have any special workshops on that. We'll do it at a regularly scheduled meeting, most likely around August. So, but I'll schedule, I'll talk with you all and schedule that. And then lastly, on the budget work sessions, it's like the next day after the budget work session, I did get a call from the Supervisor of Elections office scheduling a budget review meeting to set up with myself and staff. So we do not have a date yet to get that scheduled. It looks like it's going to be the month of July sometime, but I'll provide the board feedback as soon as I meet with the supervisor, and then any changes I'll bring back to the board for your consideration.
Okay. I have a question along those lines. So does that mean the supervisor is not planning on doing anything in the public as far as presenting his budget?
And I can, if you would like, I can ask him that question. What the board had directed me to do is meet with his staff.
Right.
And I believe, based on the information I got, the supervisor will be in that meeting with his staff, with me and my staff to review the budget. I can request that if you would like, the board would like for him to come back to the board.
I just wanted some clarity. I mean, as you know, and my fellow commissioners know, that, you know, a letter was written from my office to the supervisor Friday afternoon related to the budget work sessions, where there was a cancellation initially, a recommitment, a second cancellation, and I'm not sure if anything's moved beyond that. I've seen no response based on that. So it sounds like you've had a conversation. They're going to bring and give us more information to staff, which you will then share with the board.
Correct.
And I want to be clear with the county attorney. Have you received, as requested in my letter, any of this evidence or anything that's come to your attention that there's been some kind of concern for the safety of Mr. Anderson's family and children, wife and so forth, that have been brought to your attention?
No, I haven't received anything.
Nothing?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, anything else, sir?
No, that's my report. Thank you.
Chairman?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Delory.
Under the county manager's report, I know during the budget process, first of all, thank you, but there was a lot of questions about different things that we would have more dialogue on. And can we see that list?
Sure.
To make sure that we know, because one of the things I was talking about, and we kind of agreed, but there was no formal vote because it was a work session. We talked about leveraging dollars for a Metro Plan because of the TIP, and I didn't see that in there at Metro Plan, and I just want to make sure we're actually going to be doing that.
Yes, well, I'll put that whole list together. I'll meet with each of you all and just make sure we covered everything. We're working on that at
Great.
this
Just wanna
point.
make
But
sure. That's all. I don't want to, at the end, say, what about this?
Right.
Great.
Just
All good?
for the
Commissioner
record,
Lockhart.
I don't remember that part of the conversation, but I zoned out at various points in time across the 2 days.
I'll
So
verify.
if you could show me where that conversation was so I can go back and watch it. I've gone back actually and watched quite a few presentations because it was a lot to absorb, and so if you could send me the link of where we discussed that, that'd be great.
Great, fair enough. Good. All right, next up is district reports. We'll start with District 3, Commissioner Constantine, and I suspect he'll get it and be on his way. He's
Well, I
running
hope
late
you all have
already.
a safe and healthy 4th of July, and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Be safe. Enjoy the conference. And next up will be District 4, Commissioner Lockhart.
So I will be joining Commissioner Constantine and several hundred other county commissioners from around the state of Florida and staff and county attorneys at the Florida Association of Counties Conference over the course of the next several days. This is the annual conference where a lot of good work is done for the organization, but also a lot of great information is shared. This year we have one of the keynote speakers is Senator Rick Scott. I'm very excited to hear from him. It's nice to have him back in Central Florida. Miss him as governor a lot of the times. Wanted to report that we had the opportunity to talk about at PBAS panel discussion. Chairman Zembauer and I participated in some form or fashion talking about the penny sales tax. Other commissioners were in attendance. It really was a great opportunity for the community to ask good questions and have there be some good dialogue. There were 2 members of the public who actually participated in the panel debate back and forth, and that was very well received, I think. I also was able to take a tour of the new Orlando Health Lake Mary Hospital on Reinhardt Road. It is a fantastic building and campus, state-of-the-art. I'm so excited for our entire community that we have that level of care coming to right here in Lake Mary. So congratulations to everyone at Orlando Health for that. A very valued member of the community in Altamont Springs, longtime Seminole County resident, Apostle Bishop Dr. Preston Roll passed away. His wake and funeral will be this Friday and Saturday. He was the founding member of the Church of the Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ of Altamont Springs. Commissioner Delary shared the Value Adjustment Board meeting. I serve on the Value Adjustment Board with him and with Abby Sanchez from the school board and other members of the community. Of course, always grateful for our Value Adjustment Board clerk, Miss Terry Porter, who does a phenomenal job keeping us all in line and getting all of those petitions gathered. So kicking off that season. And also happy 4th of July, Independence Day to everyone. Celebrate safely and with meaning.
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. Next up will be Commissioner Hurd, District 5.
Thank you, Chairman. On the 12th of June, I had the pleasure of doing a dedication and celebration for the Leadership Point, which is the first subdivision built in Seminole County by Habitat for Humanity. It was in collaboration with our team. It was one of the first projects to come out of the ground and actually be occupied, where the ARPA funding mechanism, whereby we front it and then get it back after the homes are sold and then do it again to create affordable housing in our community, was started. It was pretty cool to be out there with 6 local families that will be living in that community. So congratulations to Habitat for getting that done and for having the courage to do it. And thank you to the county for funding the infrastructure that created the street, in addition to Community Services Department for putting together a very, very well thought out program. I did celebrate 100 years with the American Legion Post 53. It was their 100-year celebration, not that I've been there the whole 100 years. Use of the English language matters, and that was really joyous. There aren't many things in Florida, I find, that survive 100 years, and the fact that that organization is still robust and serving the local veterans is pretty cool. I did leave the budget hearing, the final hour of the budget hearing, to go to the Seminole County Port Authority meeting, and that meeting did go well. We did vote on the lease that's being held by the marina in terms of all of the redevelopment of the property that has to happen at their expense. So all of the work that was done by the staff to get it there, including the fire marshal, the building manager, et cetera, finally came to fruition, and no easy lift for Tricia Johnson, who's down there yawning because we're boring her to death. Your microphone does work, so that's the good news. I do want to point out, though, that they do have a subtenant in that facility, and nothing has changed with regard to the subtenant. That lease is legally theirs, and the advertisements for those events are still happening, and so we haven't solved that issue. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because questions were asked, how did the board meeting go? It went well from a contractual perspective. It is not going to meet the need that you want, and that's for those events to stop happening out there. We are not there yet, so that's just for the record. And then I do know that there is work being done on the part of the Rescue Outreach Mission Board to make sure that funding is secured, to make sure that we are moving people from homelessness into transitional housing, and the good work that Rescue Outreach Mission has been able to accomplish. They are going to have a funding gap. I have let you all know that they're going to have a funding gap. There's debate as to how much that funding gap is, but there is a board member that's calling you, all of you commissioners. I agree with Commissioner Lockhart's recommendation this morning that we have a work session with regard to that. I do know that Darren and Tricia have been meeting with Chris, who is the Rescue Outreach Mission Executive Director, to the end of determining how we move forward with them. I will tell you that Chris has done a phenomenal job of moving from the ability to raise close to nothing based on the reputational damage that had happened to that organization and the records that were kept, which were none. And the board members that we pulled together, that's prior to me being here, to pull that organization back, literally bootstrap up, did a really good job. So they are passionate at making sure that the work continues to happen out there. I would ask that if you haven't met with them, please do so, and more to come on that. The good news is that I can see a vision where they are consistently able to raise in excess of $500,000, probably beyond that. That's not what it takes to run the shelter. So there is a delta, and we do need to address that. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Herr. Commissioner Delary, District 1. I'm sorry, inquiry by Commissioner Lockhart.
I wanted to ask Commissioner Herr if she would be willing, you mentioned your time at the American Legion, and this morning we had folks from the American Legion here in support of the Veteran of the Month, and you shared a very personal story about your father. Would you be willing to reshare that?
I'd be happy to reshare that. So I have a hard time getting through the Veteran of the Month proclamations just on a regular basis, but the gentleman that was recognized this morning was a Vietnam War survivor. He had been hit by an explosive device and was injured, had a sustaining injury. And so I clarified beforehand that I was reading that with the backdrop of being the daughter of a World War II veteran. My dad was a Navy corpsman, and for those of you that don't know, the Marines don't have corpsmen. Marines land with Navy corpsmen. And so what a corpsman does is what a paramedic does, in essence, although well beyond that. My father had a GED that he earned in the Navy. He was very proud of that. He didn't have the opportunity to get a high school education. And my parents were married forever. My mother supported him, and my mom had a 5th grade education, but was able to keep us all together. He was then asked, after he retired after 22 years, to go back to Vietnam. He was asked through USAID. He had a very high field survival rate. He did field surgeries with a GED. To say that we never went to the doctor as children is the understatement of the century, because he just solved, probably by today's standard, child abuse. But take an aspirin, you'll be fine. I'll give you something to cry about, type of thing. But he spent 4 years in Vietnam as a civilian building the field hospitals that gentleman probably crossed through, and we had. He was commended for the work that he did there as a civilian. And that's that. Thank you. And I do get choked up during those. I know you guys all know it, and you just ignore me.
Yeah.
No, we don't ignore you.
We try to cover for you the best we can.
And it's very admirable that you remember your.
I usually grab a candy bar or suggest somebody have a
Handing me
cookie.
chocolate while I'm reading.
It's very admirable the way you remember your dad, and rightfully so.
Commissioner Delary.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So on Monday, June 17th, the county did a ribbon cutting for Lake Mills Boardwalk. I know it was down for a number of years, and I want to commend the staff because they've spent a lot of time in doing it, as well as consultants who are actually the contractor that helped build the boardwalk. But our staff put a lot of time and effort, not just into the ribbon cutting, but into bringing that section of Mills Park back. So they all should be commended for that. I did also attend on Sunday, this past Sunday, the 23rd, Rock Hill Mission Baptist Church, honoring Pastor McKinnon Fernandez for his anniversary. The pastor does a phenomenal job in that small little church in that community, so I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. And then on Monday, the 24th, the city of Castleberry did their ribbon cutting for the new police station, and they should also be commended. Police station is truly state-of-the-art, as well as the dollar figures that they used, the way they actually put that together. They should all be commended, spending the public's money very wisely, and the city did a phenomenal job with that. And that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to wish everyone here and everyone in the public a happy 4th of July. God bless you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Delary. I will move on to District 2, which is my district, and I'll dance around and combine that a little bit with the chairman's report. Of course, there are many events going on for July 4th, the Geneva Parade, we have the Sanford events, we have some events going on, City of Oviedo, City of Winter Springs. I would encourage you to get in the great outdoors and enjoy a celebration of our great country on July 4th, wherever you may be or wherever festivities you desire to attend. I won't reiterate the PBS meeting that Commissioner Lockhart and I attended. What I did take away from that was, and I suspect Commissioner Lockhart did as well, is how informative the folks felt after that shared with us that they were thankful that we had shared, the history, specifics of some of the things that have been circulated in the community that just simply are not true, and that we clearly made available to them at their request line items of projects that were done with that infrastructure sales tax for the last 30 years. So this mystery that somehow money went into a big pot somewhere and can't be accounted for and there's all this money left over is just simply not true. And I want to thank our budget people and our finance people who have that capability to just simply go, you want to know what happened with the Lake Sylvan sidewalks or Indian Trails this? It's right there on the line item, every cost on each line, so you don't have to go mystery shopping for these projects that were put out there. So we attended that. That was a good outing and a lot of interaction with the public. As many of you know, we've gone through some election process. I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Delary and Commissioner Constantine for being reelected to those districts without opposition. So congratulations to you, sir, and the now dismissed Commissioner Constantine for that. And of course, there's others that are still have viable races that are going to be taking place. As many of you know, my next, quote, dirty job will be at the Osceola landfill. I'm not sure what they're going to let me run, the bulldozers, the tractors, the big dump trucks, whatever it might be. But I will be endeavoring upon that as my next follow-up to pouring concrete sidewalks and spending time with our planning people. And I got to tell you, it's been very enlightening. We really do have a lot of good people here, and how much the public appreciates them. When you go out and work with these crews and how our residents actually will come up and, oh, can I get you something to drink? Can I, they see you out there sweating, doing all these things. So it speaks volumes of our staff, and it speaks volumes of our community that interaction continues to take place. Finally, from a chairman's perspective, we spoke a little bit about during y'all's report is the letter that came from the supervisor of elections, and I replied back to, I have deep concerns, as I put in that letter, that there is some concern for the supervisor of elections, personal safety, as well as his family and children, and allegations that have been levied against members of this board. And
But not named.
Correct.
So we don't know who it is.
And of course, I've solicited and suggested that that be shared with our county attorney, because we certainly do have a code of conduct here at this county commission, and that certainly would not be tolerated. So hopefully that information, whatever it is, either comes forth or it's dispelled one way or the other. And moving forward, it's not conduct that I think any of us would support. It's if true, would be unfounded. So I just want to make sure that, we recognize that we are sensitive to anybody, whether it be one of our employees or a fellow constitutional or a private citizen. We want to make sure that people are not in fear of their lives, their families' lives, their children's lives, and those kinds of things. So with that said, I will wish everybody happy 4th of July and enjoy some of those events that are out there. And that concludes my report. We will now move to the public participation open. Commissioner Lockhart.
If I may just add a quick addendum to your comments about the letter that we received last week from the supervisor. That is not the first time that members of this board or our staff have been vaguely accused of inappropriate behavior. This is a pattern. This is not a one-time occurrence, and we have asked repeatedly every time that an accusation has been made that he come forward with the evidence, with the individuals, and I don't want to exaggerate, but it's been...
Sir, no. Back down, please.
It's been at least a half dozen times. It's been, somewhere in the neighborhood of a half dozen or so times that these accusations have been levied. And every time we have attempted to get clarification so that we can follow up or to pursue anything so that we can alleviate or remedy, there has never been a follow-up. So I'm so glad that you brought it up, but I wanted to go one step further to say that this is a pattern of continual unfounded accusations. We continue to ask for the evidence, and it continues to not be provided.
Understood. And to your point, it's just not to the Board of County Commissioners. It's been other constitutional officers of this community. So point well taken. Thank you. All right, we are going to move to open public forum. Quick reminder, if you want to speak, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. We would ask you to fill out one of these forms, and you need to do so immediately if you want to be speaking, because I'm not going to hold the commission here and the rest of our audience indefinitely. If you don't want to speak, a green form, just a written comment, which will be shared with us, entered into the record. We would ask you to, when you come up, introduce yourself with your name and your address and the specific topic that you're speaking of. We would ask you, if speakers are going to be speaking on the same topic, try to not be redundant or say the same thing over and over and over. If you like what somebody is saying in front of you, just give us a thumbs up. If you don't like what they're saying, just give us a thumbs down. You don't have to shout out and say, well, all these kind of things. This is not a time where we have a lot of dialogue back and forth between the commission and the public, but it is open for inquiry from the commission. But we're here to hear whatever concerns that the public has. So we will call you up 3 at a time. If you would limit yourselves to 3 minutes or less. If you are representing a legally organized, informed group, you will be permitted 6 minutes. That doesn't mean you come up here and say you belong to the Fish Collectors Club in your neighborhood and you get 6 minutes. it's going to have to be legally organized, and I will give as much latitude as I can, as long as we're moving forward and not being redundant and making sense and moving forward. So with that said, Madam
right.
Clerk, we will call the first three up, please.
Dennis Shopner, Ryan Allen, and Cindy Holler. And would you like me to share these now with you?
Yes,
Written, okay.
if you would, if you don't mind, so we know in advance, because some of these written comments may be related to the spoken comments.
Here's 7 copies of my testimony and the 3 slides. And here's the 3 slides that I want to present. Here's 45 written comments.
So let me address that real quick. I think I understand what's, written comment forms are intended for the folks that are currently present and want to make a written comment. If there are people that are not here, they're welcome to email the commission offices. We'll get all that information and so forth. Those are not intended to be used as a petition process. The intent is, if you're here, you don't want to speak, instead, maybe you're afraid to speak, maybe you don't want to speak, but you want us to have your input, that's what the written forms are for. They're not to take and distribute through the community and gather up, this is what I want to say. So, please, sir, continue.
Okay, my name is Dennis Shetner. I live at 1167 Oak Creek Court in Winter Springs. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here today as the Chair of the Seminole County Election Security Task Force, following up on the questions from our public testimony on June 11th. It was asked, quote, how was the baby made? referring to the process of going from government-provided election data files through the data analysis to the citizens audit files. The first slide that I have here graphically depicts the data analysis process. It starts with the Florida Department of State Division of Elections, CD, which provided 2 sets of files, each with 1 file per county. One is the voter history or voting record files, and the second is the voter detail or the voter rolls. The 2 files related to the Seminole County were imported into a SQL Server database. Each file contains a unique voter ID number as instituted by the Help America Vote Act, allowing the data from these 2 files to be linked together. Next is a series of information queries were applied to the database to answer questions like, list all the voter IDs registered to a single address, or list all the names where the name equals Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, or the name fields are blank. No. There are more than 75 SQL queries performed. The data responses were saved in Excel spreadsheet files. From those Excel files, a summary of audit findings was produced. Slide 2, please. The next slide provides a summary of these audit findings for Seminole County. I don't plan to walk you through all the numbers. My short time here to testify today doesn't allow me to do so, but I will explain the structure of it, and I know it's very difficult to see on the slide there. Hopefully you have my handout because the slides are in it.
And for clarity, this was sent to us last week, correct?
I sent this file to Commissioner Lockhart.
Our office distributed it to all
Yeah,
of yours.
so we
I was
received
trying
it.
to answer her question, and I sent it to her office.
Just want to make sure that
But
was
it
safe.
is the second from the last file or piece of paper that's in that packet there. So this provides a summary of the audit findings for Seminole County. I'll provide the structure. These are the 3 tables on the slide. The first table, the biggest one at the top, lists the apparent violations. Column 1 lists the various violations by type. Column 2 lists the number of apparent registration violations, and the last column lists the number of apparent voting violations. So, for example, for invalid addresses found, there were 2,304 apparent registration violations, with 534 of those registered voters voting in the 2022 general election. The second table lists the results of the official vote history for Seminole County. It shows the number of votes counted and the number of voters who voted. That reveals that there were 964 more votes counted than voters who voted. The last table addresses the allowable error rate per the Help America Vote Act. The allowable error rate is 1 in every 125 ballots, means that Seminole County, we could have only 2 allowable errors. However, it appears that there may have been as many as 1,461 the number of voting violations. The board stated at June 11th meeting that only the SOE and not the commissioners could address these violations. I want you to know that I did meet with the supervisor of elections and his staff on June 19th. Supervisor of election Anderson stated that he's making no commitments, no promises, no guarantees, stated twice. He requested to meet in July with the data analysis team, which I'm working on scheduling. Slide 3. That said, this is what I'm asking of you, all of which is within your legal authority. Number 1, sign the resolution read to you last time on June 11th. Number 2, act on those parent violations. Florida Statute 98.075 states that the SOE does not need to accept identification of registered voters as potentially ineligible from anyone other than an official governmental entity. I am not an official governmental entity by definition of the statute. In fact, the SOE had legal counsel send me a letter telling me so. And that I should go to the Florida Department of State, not the SOE's office, on those issues. You, however, are an official governmental entity. Therefore, I'm asking you to accept from me these lists of potential ineligible registrations and illegal votes. Then you, singly or collectively, submit them to the SOE for investigation and subsequent action under the Florida statute. Number 3, authorize appropriate funds under Florida Statute 104.42 for the SOE to investigate these potential fraudulent registrations and illegal voting should the SOE exercise his authority to do so and need additional funds. My last, number 4, I ask you to continue to serve on future canvassing boards when the election campaigns and endorsements do not disqualify you in accordance with Florida Statute 102.141, and to not certify election results if questions exist on fraudulent registrations and illegal voting in the election. And finally, after the June 11th meeting, I contacted offices of 2 of the commissioners and provided one of the offices with the following information. With similar information that I provided today, some of it. Neither office contacted me back, even after stating in the session that you wanted a further meeting. You wanted to understand things more. You wanted me to answer questions. The topic I speak of today is an issue with citizens here in Seminole County.
Okay, we're getting beyond the latitude. If we can try to wrap it up, sir.
Okay. I'm concluding right here. I brought 45 written sheets. Most of those people wanted to be here, but they couldn't, and that's why they completed those. If you kindly listen to what I say and then sit back and do nothing, you're accepting registration and voting violations, which will likely be higher in 2024 than they were in 2022. Elections are not going away. This issue is not going away.
Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. Let's wrap this up real quick.
Yes, sir. What message would you like me to take back to those people? I'm scheduled to speak with a number of groups and clubs, and I would like to take your message back and provide that to the citizens. Thank you very much for your time and attention today and your diligence in providing the important leadership that you absolutely do for our county.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Kuntz.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Allen. I live at 2493 Northumbria Drive in Sanford, Florida. I've been a longtime resident of Seminole County. I want to thank you all for this time. I'm also going to ask that you give me a little bit of latitude on time, since I am the president of the Florida Republican Assembly. We are fully chartered in Seminole County, and we are a chapter of the greater group, the Florida Republican Assemblies. I'm not going to try to take up that much time. I don't think I need 6 minutes. Anyway, I did not know that we were going to have a recommendation from the county attorney today on the efforts that we've been putting together regarding the sanctuary county. However, I respect it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the recommendation, and I also understand the reasons why and the reasons against it. We never thought this would be easy. I don't think governance really ever is, especially when we're looking for things that have to do with our rights. And I know that if you think about it, you're all sitting there saying, but we already have the Bill of Rights in place. We know. You know. We understand. We're not here to badger you, bludgeon you, keep beating up a dead point. Seriously. But the point of the matter is that if we didn't continue to see violation after violation after violation across this land of breaking the rule of law, from judges to legislators to executives that do not seem to care but trample on due process again and again, and they take their political ideologies and they only work for those. If we didn't see that happening so much and becoming more and more prevalent, we wouldn't have as much concern, because it's not you that we question. Actually, I have to tell you, I know several of you have sat down and talked with me. We've had meals together. You all are honorable people. That's why we continue to come to you. I mean that. I don't just say that. You're honorable people. You all care about your constituents. You care about Seminole County. We know that. And that's why we keep coming to you with this, because we see the trends, and the trends are what concerns us. This is not the sky is falling, or the chicken running around saying that the sky is falling. It's a concern because we continue to see the same things happen, which is the breaking of the rule of law, which we are a federal republic, as you know, a constitutional republic, and the following of law is important. So when we also see this, we see the mainstream media. And that is a big concern, because there are still those that listen. And we know that if you tell a lie once or twice, it's still a lie. But if you repeat it 1,000 or 2,000 times, it becomes the truth. And yet it's still a lie, because people's perception of reality often becomes their reality. So that being the case, I've got just a couple of things I'd like to quote to you as consideration as to why we're here. Because what we're here for is to talk to you about us partnering up with the CSPOA, which is the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association of America, and how they work for furthering the Constitution and holding the Constitution as that rule of law, and making sure that's enforced in such a way that fits within the rule of law that's been set as that law of the land. So there'll be those who'll talk about that a little bit after me. So just a couple of things. There's a quote out of the Bible which I think is important, out of Timothy. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. And we see this again and again. We see semantics in words. We see 69 genders and counting. I'm not trying to judge whether that's right or wrong, but where's the science? We see that term tossed around, but we don't see people following actual science. We see all these other things. And so there's a couple other quotes which I'd like to read to you, which I think apply, even though the term is interesting. I never thought we'd see it to the point of where it is today, which is Orwellian. And some of those are this: the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. And the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. We see it happening every day. All tyrannies rule through fraud and force, but once the fraud is exposed, they must rely exclusively on force. While we're not there in this nation, we see examples of it. Look at J6. Are all of those people, should they still be there, not even having had a trial? I'm not trying to ask you to decide on that. I'm just saying, this is why we are here petitioning you, thankful that we have the ability to redress these things, to come to you and ask you to hear us. Because that's why we elect you, that's why we believe in you, and that's why we still believe in the system. We do not believe in violence. We believe in the rule of law, and we uphold it.
Mr. Allen, I'll ask you to try to wrap it up here.
I will. Just a couple more. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered, and that process is continuing day to day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except the endless present in which the party is always right. What we want is not for some dystopian future to become a reality. What we want is for what our founding fathers put together. We believe you believe the same thing. We voted for you. I voted for every one of you, you know? So my point simply is this. Thank you for hearing us. Just understand that what we're seeking is to collaborate with you. We're not asking you to approve a document yet. We're saying collaborate with us, work with us, see if there's a way to come up with something that makes sense for you and for your constituents. And if that's the case, what better way in governance is there than that? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next three, please.
We still have one. This is on.
How many more speakers do we have, Ms. Koontz?
We have 5.
Okay, we may take a break. We'll see here.
Do you want me still to speak?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, Cindy Holler, 1731 Beacon Drive. And so I was going to say I appreciate the county attorney speaking up regarding the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County Ordinance. Collier County has it. Tom and I actually own property in Collier County, and I don't understand Seminole why Collier is good with it, Seminole's not. I'm a little confused by that, but I guess I'll continue to listen. I wanted to read something from something from the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. The Bill of Rights Sanctuary County Ordinance, on an almost daily basis, we see the federal, state, executive, judicial, and legislative branches of government enacting unconstitutional acts, administrative orders, executive orders, as Ryan said, judicial rulings, legislative actions, mandates, proclamations, regulations, rules, and treaties which violates or unreasonably restricts, impedes, or impinges upon individual constitutional rights and violate the fundamental American doctrine of separation of powers. During the 2020 COVID crisis, or we could have any emergency, right, looking forward, this was especially true, just stating history, and was used to usurp God-given constitutional rights that are enumerated in the Bill of Rights. When the very structure of election process is compromised to ensure the selection of elected officials in such a way as to ensure that special interests are placed above the will of the people, and these officials are insulated from accountability and impeachment, what can we, the people, do? The last hope we, the people, have for any help with the protection of our constitutional rights is our sheriffs, local government, which includes the BCC, and police force. Many counties and cities have worked together with their law enforcement agencies to establish sanctuary counties for the Second Amendment and Bill of Rights as a means of not having these rights illegally revoked in the name of an emergency. To this end, the CSPOA, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, is organizing to empower counties and cities throughout the state of Florida to have their county commissioners and city councils within the counties enact ordinances and resolutions making their counties and cities a sanctuary for the Bill of Rights that will be enforced by the local sheriff and police departments. A Bill of Rights sanctuary county is a county that, according to the doctrine of the lesser magistrate, which includes the BCC, interposes itself to protect all of its residents from state or federal governmental encroachment upon the God-given rights and privileges of its citizens that are guaranteed and protected by our original Constitution and Bill of Rights. And I'm going to stop there, someone's going to continue. But I would like to see the ordinance added, if possible, to an item on the BCC agenda. And I wish everyone a happy Independence Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen, How many of these folks are with your group? How many? If y'all could raise your hands. Okay, well, you just spoke for 6 minutes on all their behalfs, representing the organization, and I don't want to preclude anybody, but do they have anything new to add other than what you have said already?
Only certain details would be something that
If I could ask for consideration for everyone's time here today, if you can shorten up, not be repetitive, technically, if an individual is going to take 6 minutes and speak on behalf of an entity, then that's who speaks on behalf of the entity. Each member of the entity does not come up and continue to speak. So with that said, if I can ask, be conscious of everybody's precious time. I want everybody to have their input. So if you all would start lining up the next three, I will let you go with as much latitude as I can. If you start to get a little duplicative or redundant, I'm going to cut you off.
So if we can, then based on that, because we do respect your time.
No, understood.
We appreciate it. Rather than continuing to read to you from this one document that was prepared, it can get mundane. We'll just give it to you. We'll continue to communicate with you offline.
Fair enough.
From this meeting, and we will continue the topic.
Appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
And now,
Next.
then that, I only have one more.
Okay.
Cindy Holler wants to speak about black bears.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Okay.
Ms. Holler.
Yes, I'm back again.
So Ms. Holler?
I was
Ms.
going to
Holler,
say.
Ms. Holler,
Yes.
you have 1 minute. You've already used part of your 3 minutes already. It's not per subject. It's per addressing the board, so you've got a minute. Be quick if you can.
So here's what I didn't know that, Chairman.
Rules are rules.
I was going to say, I was actually going to ask for 6 minutes on this topic. I didn't realize, but here, oh, wow.
You're down to 30 seconds.
Oh, my goodness. No, stop. Okay, Cindy Holler, 1731 Beacon Drive, Sanford. So I'm an advocate for wildlife. The state, as you know, we have the governor signed the bear taking bill on Friday night. I'm unhappy about that. I'm just wondering what's going to happen in our natural choice county. Some of my neighbors are very misinformed on what exactly this means. So I sent Ashley an email to the county. Residents, there's a lot of neighbors who know how to live with our bears, but then there's a lot of newbies who are afraid and they don't understand. Are we going to have residents shooting in Lake Forest, Heathrow? I mean, these are things to think about. Our natural areas, our parks. I think we need more education, signage, bear-proof garbage cans. I have seen some new signage on Markham Woods Road with the mama bear and cubs, and I think that's a really good sign. And I look forward to hearing more from my county regarding this. So thank you.
Thank you,
How
Ms.
was
Holler.
that?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Any further comments? Okay, we'll close public comment. I think it's appropriate, at least this commissioner needs to make a statement to those that are here. This commissioner sees and observes and feels some of the same concerns that many of you do. I think as we all step back and reflect the state of our union and things that are happening in different parts of our country, I'm in 100% agreement with a lot of things that have been said, not only at this meeting and others. I think it's wise that we understand that, at least here in Seminole County, we find ourselves in a pretty fortunate place, that you have good leaders, you have good citizens. From time to time, we don't always agree on everything, but at least we have civil discourse, and then we continue to move forward and work, collaborate with each other in trying to move forward. I think it's also important to understand that we are simply just county commissioners. We're not the governor of the state. We are not the federal government. We are not the Secretary of State. We are not a lot of things. And so I would ask that each and every one of you, I encourage you to come and speak to us and ask us whenever you want. But I think a lot of the things that you share concerns, we share, but it's at the wrong place. In other words, it needs to be shared and the efforts directed at a level that actually has the power or the discretion or the wherewithal to help make those changes. Many of us have conversations with legislatures and our representatives, very much like you all do, in communicating those. And so I think it's important that we understand that, you know, most of us, if we thought we could do something real quick and change things in this country, we would absolutely do that in a second. To go back to a time that has obviously since passed, and hopefully we find our way as a union and get back to that. But that also said, this should not also be considered as a place or a venue for giving political statements from the standpoint, you're welcome to speak, but it's not a place to grandstand your political views. As many of you can expect, there are people that have views that are in contrast to each one of you, each one of us, and that's what makes this country so great. As long as at the end of the day we do the most and the best for the outcome of our country and our fellow man, is what we're truly looking for. So I would just ask that of each and every one of you. You all have been very respectful, but please understand what powers we do and don't have. And we just don't have some of the powers you're asking us to take, and some of the other things which you heard the county attorney speak to earlier today just don't make sense for us to put our taxpayers in harm's way financially to go down a path that arguably could be problematic. So, Commissioner Lockhart?
I have two quick asks. Would the county attorney at a later date be willing to review items number 2 and 3 of Mr. Shepner's ask and let us know what the interpretation of those statutes are and if that is in fact something that we would have within our purview? And my other ask is to outline what would be the legal remedy if this board saw something that we believe to be unconstitutional happening in Seminole County. Would it be filing a lawsuit? Would it be, what would the board's remedy be? If it's not the ordinance or the declaration or whatever it is, if it's not that, and I'm not disagreeing with you that it's not that, but if it's not that, then what is the board's remedy when and if we see something unconstitutional happening? And that's not for now, but for future.
Will do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Glary.
I'd have a question for the county attorney, almost on the same lines as Commissioner Lockhart. There's a citizens audit here, and there is a significant number of issues, not with the audit because we didn't do the audit, but if this is even remotely true, it raises eyebrows. What is the appropriate direction that we should be taking with evidence that citizens are giving to us to take into account? Do we give it to the Secretary of State? Do we go to the Supervisor of Election? What do we do?
I'm probably going to have to research that a little bit and get back to you.
Okay. I would appreciate that. I'm sure we would too. Yeah, I said we.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're acting.
And I want to be clear, I think this, if I'm following some of the communications, this has already been sent to the Secretary of State, is that correct? Some of this data?
All this in much more detail.
Understood. I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
I don't want us to be complacent. I want us to be.
Understood.
I hear you.
Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Hurd.
I believe that we also received an email from the Supervisor of Elections regarding the meeting with Mr. Shopner. And
Yes.
I have now painfully found it and forwarded it to you.
Right.
So that you have that for your documents as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure along those lines that as you said, you had met with the supervisor, and last time you were here, I think, and I don't want to mischaracterize what was said, but the supervisor refused to meet with you. Is that what was said?
I said refused, maybe I didn't choose my words correctly. Him and his staff failed to get back to me
Okay.
on anything.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. No, that's good. And we've got this email that came in, so I was like, okay, great, we're getting together. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Well, I want to remind everybody before we dismiss, we don't have another meeting until the 23rd of July. The holidays fast upon us, so we've got a little break in between here, and I wish each and every one of you happy 4th of July and hope that you get to spend some time with your family and friends and everything's enjoyable and everybody stays safe. Anything else from management?
No, sir.
Nothing from the county attorneys? No, sir. Seeing none, we shall be adjourned. Thank you all very much.